Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bears Talk today. Now, the Bears played the last night. That's why we're doing a Friday episode today. And it was kind of embarrassing. I won't lie to you. No pun intended, right? They lost 6-3 at home against the Seattle Seahawks. You know, the rain was a factor. It was a little windy yesterday. I was actually at the game as well. But the weather, you can't blame the weather for this one. This was a putrid offensive performance from the Chicago Bears. Where have I heard that one before? The offense couldn't get anything done all day. They kicked a field goal in the second quarter, and that was it. Credit where credit is due. The defense actually held Geno Smith and the Seahawks in check for the majority of the game. They pitched a second-half shutout after two early Seattle field goals. But this game was a stinker. Point blank, this game was one of those games where you fall asleep to, you take a nap to. Not if you're at the game like I was, even though I'm pretty sure some people in my section were falling asleep. But this is one of those games that just kind of perfectly summarizes what the Chicago Bears are, what they've become. And what they've become is a terrible organization. An organization whose offense can't do anything despite some really good players. They'll always have that Achilles heel of the offensive line, which hasn't been addressed seriously. And it just leads to some really, really bad football. Now, I want to show you guys a video that I took yesterday regarding the way that Bears fans feel, just in terms of the way that their direction is going as a team. So, Alex, could you please play the video really quick? So as you could hear, fans are very passionately yelling to sell a team. Now, this wasn't just a thing that was happening at the end of the game. This wasn't just in the fourth quarter. They were chanting that throughout the entire game. And I think it just speaks to how hopeless a lot of Bears fans feel right now. They feel like just from top to bottom, this organization just needs serious, serious help. And I think it's sad. It really is sad. You know, the Bears are just in a terrible spot right now. But let's talk about the game and try to pull as many things as we can from it. So, again, 6-3. Offensively speaking, there wasn't much to talk about. Caleb Williams, I think the highlight of the night was a touchdown pass he threw to Roma Dunze, which was called back due to a holding call. It was a nice throw from Caleb there. And Caleb made a few nice plays. The fourth down late in the game, he hit DJ Moore, I believe it was. That was a nice throw. But, again, he struggled yesterday. There's no point about it. He missed some throws. He couldn't get in rhythm. His footwork looked off. And the Seattle pass rush, again, to their credit, they were destroying this Bears offensive line. They were getting after it. And it's so funny to me because what the Seahawks were doing is they weren't sending, other than maybe the last play, the Seahawks were getting home with 4 guys, right? So the Bears had plenty of men at the line of scrimmage to account for every Seattle defensive lineman. And it didn't matter because they couldn't even hold up on a one-on-one block or a double-team block or whatever. It was incredibly sad. And then on defense, I thought, again, they played well for most of the night. But a lot of that, I think, is because, the Seahawks, they called a very conservative game. Seahawks offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb has been, under flack for his unwillingness to run the football. And he did that. For better or worse, against the Bears, he said, we are going to run the football. Zach Charbonnet got about 14 carries. Kenny McIntosh had carries as well. Seattle really didn't threaten the ball down the field at all. They threw a lot of screens and quick outs and everything like that. They really didn't push the ball down the field. Geno didn't have his best game, obviously, and they ran the ball, for mixed results. I'd say it's more positive than negative. But again, credit to the Bears for limiting the big play. I do wonder if, their thought process was with the rain, with the slickness of the ball, we don't want to, risk a turnover. Seattle's offensive line also isn't very good either, so they didn't want to get Geno in trouble. He fumbled that one time. And, I mean, honestly, they just were kind of able to just 3-yard run their way to a victory. It's sad. It really is sad. One of the worst football games, I think, of the season, just from a consumer perspective of entertaining football, of things to look forward to, because this was not Caleb Williams' best game. This was not DJ Moore or Roma Dunze's best game. Cole Kmet, I mean, he's like the avatar. He's like when we need him most, he just vanishes. He's had 3 targets in the last 4 games. Completely unbelievable. And just to kind of drive home the point of how bad the Bears have been. They've now lost 10 games in a row, by the way. Next week, it's going to become 11 because they're not beating Green Bay in Green Bay. Absolutely not. This team is just totally defeated. just to illustrate how bad the Bears have been over the last 10 weeks, I'd like to read you something that I found on Twitter. This is from Jack BFR. He said, within the last 10-game losing streak, the Chicago Bears have held the lead for 17 minutes and 40 seconds. They held it for 25 seconds against the Commanders, 15 minutes against the Packers, for 59 seconds against the Vikings. So in 10 hours of football, minimum, the Bears have held the lead for 17 minutes. And again, there's not much you could say. The Bears' longest losing streak was 14 games. This was the 2022 to the 2023 season. Now we're at what's going to be 11 going into next year. And don't be surprised if there are major shakeups to the Bears front office. Ryan Poles, in the beginning of the year, I pounded the drum. I said he should keep his job. He's done enough good. Yes, he had misses. Chase Claypool, Roquan Smith, letting David Montgomery walk. Those were all bad decisions. But he hit the biggest home run with the Caleb Williams acquisition. And I most definitely still believe that way. I think the trade was awesome, and I think the Bears have their franchise quarterback. But are we really going to let the guy who has missed on so many occasions and has done so many things wrong pick our next head coach, use another high draft pick, because the Bears currently sit with the 7th overall pick, may even get into the top 5 with the loss next week against Green Bay. Are we going to let that guy make many more highly impactful decisions? Right? The Bears are going to have 3 top 40 picks in the draft. Draft capital-wise, they're set. Additionally, they're not paying a lot of people, so they have money as well. They have money to spend. They have draft picks. They have a really attractive vacancy at head coach. Are we sure that Ryan Poles should be the guy that's going to make those 3 decisions? Because like it or not, the result of those 3 decisions, most specifically the head coach, is what's going to determine if the Chicago Bears are successful in the Caleb Williams era, right? If they hire another bum head coach, if they, mess up their draft picks that they have, if they don't allocate their resources to the offensive line financially, this Caleb Williams thing, I don't care how talented he is, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. He's not Superman. He's not Peyton Manning. As much as I love Caleb Williams, the guy needs help. Same thing with 99% of quarterbacks. Needs help, right? He needs an offensive line. And he needs a running game. He needs those things. He needs a competent coach. Those are things that 99% of quarterbacks do, okay? And so it's not an indictment on Caleb by any means, but for the love of God, give him some help, please. Please. Okay. So Ryan Poles, I don't know if he is going to be the GM come January. There's also discussions about, hey, he's now led 2 of the longest losing streaks in Chicago Bears franchise history. I also think that's an indictment on his record. But again, I think the worst part is just the offensive line and the way he's just completely lacked adding quality players to that unit. He signed Nate Davis. Well, if you sign a guy who's awful, you don't get much credit. I'm sorry. Nate Davis was a problem in the locker room. He wasn't very good on the field. He's awful. So, yeah, you spend money. You basically threw money in a fireplace and burned it because he wasn't good, right? Jury's still out, I think, on Darnell Wright. I've noticed some positive signs with him, so I'm not going to completely jump ship on him yet. He was a top 10 pick for a reason. I'll give him time to develop. But, again, the other 4 offensive linemen, it's like, what are we doing? Like, the Bates move was terrible. Shelton's been terrible. If Jay Kern's starting games for you in 2024, you got real issues on your hands. So, again, I can't defend Caleb yesterday. Didn't play his best game. He's a rookie. It's going to happen. I'm sad to see that the interception streak ended because that was, I guess, one maybe faint silver lining of him beating Aaron Rodgers' record. Didn't happen. He threw the pick on the last play of the game to Reek Woolen. So, again, if you're a Bears fan, there's not a lot of positives from yesterday. It's really hard to grasp at straws to find some positives in a 6-3 home loss on December the 26th. So, I think as the Bears move forward, and we've been in this mode for a while. Me and Justin predicted weeks and weeks ago that the Bears might not win another game. We said that before Thanksgiving. We are going into the new year now, and the Bears will have not won a game they have not won a game in America since October 6th, which is incredibly frustrating, incredibly sad. It's every negative word you could use, it is. And Caleb Williams talked about it yesterday. He came under some fire for this, but he said, hey, the frustration with the fans has been here since before I got here. And I didn't take that so much as him deflecting blame. I took that as he's self-aware. He's self-aware of the organization that he's in. He didn't come into the Kansas City Chiefs and, because of him, they're not winning Super Bowls every year, and now the fans are upset. The Bears have been a dumpster fire organization for years before Caleb. And I'm hopeful that he is one of the people that can turn that around and make them into a contending team, make them into a team that we're proud to watch every Sunday, Thursday, Monday, whatever it is. But the Bears, they seem really, really far from it. Again, there is hope. I'm not saying we're hopeless, but when you start to just tally up everything that's gone wrong for the Bears, it's like, oh, they need a new GM, and now they need a new coach, and they're trying to get a new stadium, and they need an offensive line, and they need some up on the defensive line. It's quite exhausting. It's quite exhausting to kind of go through that list and hope that the Bears can figure out all of these things. I also wanted to mention the Bears this year, 4-5 at home. They're 0-7 on the road. This has been a awful road team. They've gone games where they've just completely gotten blown out. Arizona looked like they were playing a different sport. San Francisco playing a different sport. Minnesota, they looked like they were playing checkers, and the Vikings were playing 4D interdimensional chess. It wasn't a fair fight at all. And I understand that going on the road, especially when you go across the country like to a San Francisco or a loud division environment like the Vikings, I understand those are difficult. But if you want to be a competent team, you got to go you have to at least put up a fight on the road. It's just it's terribly sad. There's so many things that you can point to. There's so many negative aspects of this Bears team, and I'm trying not to be negative. I'm not. I want to be honest, because I tried the positivity thing last week and it didn't work. So now I'm going to be more honest. I'm going to be more blunt when I say that the Bears have some serious problems on their hand. Now, I mentioned before with the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh how he had taken that team and he's flipped them around year one, right? And they're a much better team than they were under Brandon Staley. Do I believe a guy like Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel or whoever could do that for the Bears? I do. I think coaching has been so catastrophic for this team that any competency in that department would skyrocket this team. But I also understand that when you're in a division with the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur's not going anywhere, the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell's not going anywhere, and the Lions with Dan Campbell, who is a good coach. I will say it'll be a little more difficult because he is going to be probably losing both of his coordinators, but a good coach regardless. You got to get a guy who is in their league or else you have no chance in the division, right? No chance. And to my point, that's why the Chargers went out and spent the big bucks on Jim Harbaugh, is because they understand if they don't have a coach that is in the same stratosphere as Andy Reid, they have no chance. For as long as Mahomes is playing football, they would have no chance in that division. So, again, they went out and they got the big fish. Well, I think the Bears need to do the exact same thing, because if you hire some, middle-of-the-pack coordinator, whatever, Matt LaFleur and Kevin O'Connell, they're going to coach circles around this guy. You'll never sniff the division. And I'm brought back to what Ryan Poles said in his introductory press conference as GM. He said, we're going to take the North or we're not giving it back. Well, dude, you've actually gotten worse. Like, the Packers and Vikings have taken the North. You know what I'm saying? And it's not anything to do with, the Bears, they're close. They're right there. They're not even close. It's been 4 years. They're not even close. Justin Fields never beat the Packers. Caleb Williams is going to go 0-2 against his time with the Packers. Mitch Trubisky beat the Packers once, I believe. I don't think he beat him again. So since 2017, we've beaten the Packers one time. And again, they've been the gold standard in our division for many years. But now the Vikings are better. Now Detroit's better. Detroit was always like, they're right here with us. They got their act together. They're better now. They're an elite football team. They're a well-run organization. They have good personnel. They have great front office people. Brad Holmes is excellent. And now I think the gap between the Bears and the Lions is even big, which is frustrating. It is frustrating. Again, there's hope. We can look at GM candidates. I would not be surprised if Ben Johnson became our head coach, and then if we brought in somebody from the front office of the Detroit Lions. Who specifically, I don't know, but I do know that would be a likely pairing if Ben Johnson came over to Chicago. The McCaskies have to leave the organization, the comment I just got. And I couldn't agree more. And I was actually going to get into that in a couple minutes, but I'm going to just jump into it right now because pro sports are really funny because this isn't like a business. You know what I'm saying? If I owned a business, if I was an entrepreneur and my business philosophy and my, ideas and everything I poured money into was awful, you know what? I'd be out of business. I'd be out of business and I'd be broke. But when you own an NFL team like the McCaskies do or like any of these other owners do, you can make every wrong decision and really it has no impact. The McCaskies swim in cash. Owning the Chicago Bears is an infinite money glitch, okay? You make so much money. I was just at the stadium yesterday. Despite the fact that the Bears were 4-11, not playing for anything, they're on a 10-game losing, or what would have been a 10-game losing streak. That stadium was packed with Bears fans, screaming and hooting and hollering, wearing jerseys and hats and gloves, and we had a couple guys dressed up like Staley. And I thought about this, and I was like, there's no other business on earth where you could be so poor as an owner, as a CEO, as a head of a company, and still make this much money and have this much success. Because no matter what they do, the Chicago Bears fans will pack that stadium. They're going to buy tickets, they're going to buy jerseys, and they're going to, buy tickets to training camp. The Bears fans will be there no matter the record. And it's unfortunate because for the McCaskies, not only are they swimming in cash, but obviously they are direct descendants of George Halas, Papa Bear Halas, one of the founding fathers of the National Football League, a football legend, and Papa Bear Halas. And they have that family history connected to them. This is not, some business Mongol who bought an NFL team like Jerry Jones or whoever, right? They're grandfathered into the National Football League because of Papa Bear Halas. So for Bears fans telling them to sell the team and this, that, whatever, they're not going to sell a team. What incentive would they have to sell the team? They're making so much money and they're carrying on the tradition of their grandfather. So any hope that the Bears, from an ownership standpoint, are going to change, don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath, right? It just, again, no other business on earth could you be this poor as a decision maker and make this much money. I don't care what you do. You're not going to make this much money doing that. And owning an NFL team, not only are you set for life, not only is your wife set for life, your kids, their grandkids. I mean, however long the McCaskey bloodline owns the Bears, everyone in that circle is set for life. For life. And again, there is not a high enough check you could write to buy the Chicago Bears. I don't believe. I mean, the Broncos, I believe, were the most recent sale of an NFL team. I believe they went for $7.5 billion. So first of all, who's got the cash for $7.5 billion? There's a very small handful of people on the planet that could write a check that big. Number one. And number two, as a franchise, the Bears are valued at much more than $7.5 billion. I mean, I think the price tag would start at 10. So who's going to buy the Bears for $10+ billion? You're looking at a pretty penny there. And you have to also understand, like, okay, maybe the McCaskies say $12 billion. That's the price tag. Well, after taxes and after this and that, there's a chance the sale doesn't go through. So Bears fans, don't hold your breath. The McCaskies are going to be here. They're going to continue to be here. I hope that by some miracle they are competent enough to hire somebody who can hire other people to get this job done. Just keep George and keep Virginia out of it. I'm so sorry. They don't know what they're doing. They are running a poor team. And again, let them sit back. Let them, rake in the money. Let them enjoy the Bears when they're good, but stay out of the day-to-day operations, okay? Do not let them intervene in the football aspect of the Chicago Bears because it's exhausting. It is so exhausting. So I've been rambling for about 20 minutes about why the Bears suck, how the Bears suck, the factors. Another factor that worries me is Kevin Warren. I do believe that was a bad hire. He's got a bad reputation from his time as the commissioner of the Big Ten. A lot of guys that don't like him, most notably Jim Harbaugh. I bring up Jim Harbaugh a lot, and I know people have commented in the past, like, why do you bring up Jim Harbaugh all the time? First of all, he's an excellent head football coach, and that is exactly what the Bears need. Second of all, he was drafted to the Bears, right? He was drafted to the Colts. He played for the Bears later. He was the Bears quarterback for a number of years. He's a Midwest kid. He's from Michigan, okay? He's a Midwest guy, played for the Bears, and is an excellent coach. To me, that's like the most automatic come be our head coach I've ever seen. But clearly, they didn't do that. And, of course, I'm not surprised he's turned around the Chargers, and they've been excellent. Okay, so I'm going to spend the last 5 to 10 minutes of this show talking about the Green Bay Packers. That's our last game of the year. Bears facing off against the Green Bay Packers. Now, I didn't bother to check the Vegas line for that one. My guess, quite honestly, is it's going to be like 10 to 12 points, which is very high for a division game, but honestly, I don't blame it. Honestly, if the line was 30, I wouldn't even be surprised. Bears get to play the Packers in the last game of the season in Green Bay. Now, during the course of my lifetime, or my football watching lifetime, the Bears have not really had any success against the Packers, specifically against the Packers in Green Bay, one of the toughest road environments in the NFL. Now, I'm going to look at the weather for January 2nd. It's going to be only 25 degrees. That's not too bad. 15-mile-an-hour winds. So the elements are going to play a factor. It's the frozen tundra. But from the perspective of the Packers, Josh Jacobs has been a godsend for this team. They have been a power-running football team. They have been able to just run the ball up and down the field. And what that's allowed is it has given Jordan Love the opportunity to not have to make as many risky throws, right? Because now they're not down early in football games a lot of the times. They don't start off slow, so he doesn't have to make this crazy throw on 3rd and 15 that's, in triple coverage that could get intercepted. He's playing much cleaner football. And what that's allowing him to do is, again, deliver the ball down the field, not only with confidence and bravado, which he always had, but to limit the turnovers, right? Because that's the one knock on him is like, okay, yeah, well, he's got a little Brett Favre in him. He's going to throw a couple interceptions here and there. He's limited the turnovers. Their running game has been excellent, and he's still been making the big plays with his arms. So the Packers, I think, have found the formula to where you get the most out of Jordan Love's talent while also decreasing the amount of his Brett Favre level plays, which I think Brett Favre is actually an apt comparison for him because he'll make some throws and you say, first of all, how do you even think to attempt that throw? Second of all, he squeezes the ball, in between two safeties on the sideline or underneath or whatever, what have you, like nobody's business. But he also knows his arm is good, and sometimes he'll make throws that he shouldn't. So that's the key. If the Bears are going to pull out a win, I can't even say that without laughing. If the Bears are going to pull off a victory against Green Bay and Wisconsin, they're going to have to get some Jordan Love turnovers. Like, they're going to need some extra possessions. Additionally, this Packers defense, led by new defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, they've been much better. They have been much, much better than they were last year under, I believe it was Joe Barry. They're getting after the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Again, a lot of times now their offense is so efficient. The defense, has plenty of time to breathe in between drives. They're not, the Packers aren't really going 3 and out, so defense has time to rest and recover. I know Yahir Alexander has been out for a while. I believe he's on IR, so they're a little banged up on the back end. I know Keyshawn Nixon has been very good for the Packers. They've had some other contributors as well. Xavier McKinney's been excellent this year. And again, this is a Packers organization. You talk about just organizational philosophies. They're an organization that doesn't really spend a lot of money in free agency, but in this offseason, they had 2 of the biggest deals. They signed Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. Both of those deals have been excellent. Both of those players have been excellent for the Packers. So, again, that just goes back to allocating resources correctly. Something that the Packers do, something that the Vikings do, something that now the Lions are doing. It's not something the Bears do. And, again, we could spin ourselves in circles for hours, but I just wanted to make that point clear. Lastly, on the offensive side of the ball for the Bears, the key is to keep Caleb Williams upright. They haven't done that all year. They're going to need to do it against this Packers defense. Caleb got sacked 7 times yesterday against the Seattle Seahawks. A couple of those, I will admit, he just needs to throw the ball away. He just needs to, live to play another down. But I also understand his philosophy of like, hey, I need to basically be Superman on every play if we're going to have a chance. And you know what? He's not wrong. He isn't wrong because the Bears yesterday, let's see what their running total was. I guess DeAndre Swift had 12 carries, 53 yards, had one of his better games. But majority of the time, they're not able to run the football. Majority of the time, he doesn't have a lot of time to go through his progressions, naturally speaking, with his drop back. So, I get why he kind of has those bad habits. And, again, credit to the Bears defense. The Bears defense looked better yesterday. I think that more so says that the Seahawks didn't look good on offense more than the Bears looked good on defense. But, again, credit where credit's due. But, before we get out of here, I wanted to say this is going to be the second to last episode of Bears Talk today for this regular season. We're going to have the Packers game next Sunday, so it'll be a little bit more than a week for that episode. And then, I probably won't do an episode after that until the Bears hire their head coach, Ben Johnson, please. And depending on how far the Lions go in the playoffs, there could be a couple weeks to wait. So I just want to let you guys know that. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all of the support. I appreciate you guys tuning in, even though the Bears really don't deserve to be talked about right now, if we're being honest. And last but not least, I wanted to say my score prediction is probably Green Bay. What was the score in that Space Jam game? It was like 627-0. I'm thinking something close to that. I'm thinking something a little close to that. So I'll let you guys go with that, and peace out.